Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Movie 101 Review. And today we're having a Safa Sunday.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Have a wonderful time zone whenever and wherever you are listening in to this beautiful Movie 101 Review podcast. My name is Safa Burnell. I am a best selling cyberpunk and mythpunk author and somebody who just really, really loves films.
We love films, people, but we have an announcement, people, because next month we're having a Safa Saturday.
Yay!
Yes,
Oh,
for unavoidable circumstances, people, we're changing our day to Saturday. Much better, more earlier, right, Miss Burnell?
Oh, yeah, let's get it in on Saturday. Saturday's a great way to decompress with some Movies 101 review. It's going to be a fantastic change, and thank you, everybody, for the support you've given to Safa Sundays, and please do support Safa Saturdays as well. That would be fantastic. Love you muchly.
That much better, bigger, and bolder. Oh.
Yes. Oh,
So, Miss Burnell, what we gonna talk about today?
we are talking about the best thrillers, in my opinion, that have come out in the last 50 years.
Yes, what I'm thinking about, the silence of the
Oh, yeah.
lamb.
Absolutely. Silence of the Lambs was a 1991 classic thriller. It was directed by Jonathan Demme and features the chilling performances of Jodie Foster as Clarice Starling and Anthony Hopkins as Dr. Hannibal Lecter.
Look,
Hello,
okay,
Clarice.
look, Clarice. I love that.
Ah! No.
So, what are the key characteristics of define a thriller movie, Miss Bernal?
Number one is somewhere, sometime, in some capacity, the audience should not know what's going on in a certain amount of way. You should be able to see the grand premise of something, whether with something like Silence of the Lambs, it is an FBI cadet needing to get the help of an incarcerated and manipulative cannibal, literal cannibal. So there's all of this kind of thing. We've got the premise, but we don't necessarily know to trust every single person in the thriller. We don't know to trust every event that's going on in the thriller. We don't necessarily know to trust uh, the heroes, even. There's that sense of being off kilter, there's that sense of being thrown about. And with something like Silence of the Lambs, it's all psychological. She needs his help. She needs Hannibal Lecter's help to catch another serial killer. But how that happens and what Dr. Hannibal Lecter does with just the psychological depths of his abilities and his charisma, in a way. I mean, you have to say, Anthony Hopkins is the lord of charisma when it comes to filmmaking. And every little bit of it is on display in The Silence of the Lambs. How, as creepy as he is, and as kind of unsettling as it is to look at a human who eats other humans, uh, it's like, oh, that's fundamentally wrong. But
Yes.
now both Anthony Hopkins and Mads Mikkelsen have played Hannibal Lecter, and both of those actors have an incredible amount of charisma, which I think is very important, because otherwise, a character like Dr. Hannibal Lecter, like a lot of characters in a lot of thrillers, can be overacted and overdone so quick,
So fast.
so fast, and then all of a sudden it's not a thriller anymore, it's a caricature. All of a sudden it's a cartoon supervillain. But the way that both of these individuals have played the role is
Because Miss Bernal, we love Anthony Hopkins.
oh
We
yeah.
give you a big hand. Thank you so much. Thank you for your talent. Thank you for
Yes.
entertaining us. It's so
Oh,
amazing.
oh
Excellent.
yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing his new show on Amazon Prime too. So
Oh, wow. That'd be
yeah.
awesome. So, how does suspense play a crucial role in successful thriller?
Without some form of carrot on a stick suspense, you have no sustainability to the character motivations, to the plot. You have nothing to really keep people engaged. So suspense really is a heightened form of tension. And suspense is also something in a film, exactly like tension, where you can't have it at, that high pitched violin string note the entire film. You can't
Yes.
do that because people will just clock out. People will be like, and that's enough. Or, what a lot of people end up doing is they start to laugh. And that's where you can kind of get some of the overuse of suspense turning into ways for people to bring comedy into something, because comedy tends to use some of that line. You're dragging somebody through a story or through an event, and then at the end there needs to be a build up and then a release. And in comedy, it's to make you laugh. In suspense, it's to freak you out. Or we're getting into spooky season. It's to make you scream, or it's to make you cry, or it's to get that jump scare. Or if it's something like Anthony Hopkins' performance in The Silence of the Lambs, it's something like this almost silent concerto the entire way through The Silence of the Lambs, where you've just got a couple of different notes that he goes through, and it either winds you up or you have that chance to breathe. And without that potential to be wound up and then given a chance to breathe and wound up again, you won't be able to make it the whole way to, that gigantic final push, that over the edge, over the cliff face, down into the water. You're not going to make it to that cliff face unless you have that kind of suspenseful and tense push and pull. Because again, it's almost like, the thing of everybody says, the frog in the boiling pot of water. You throw a frog into a boiling pot of water, or you throw one of my friends into an album that I enjoy that happens to be unblack death metal. The likelihood is they're going to listen to 2 seconds of it and go, oh no, what are you doing? Like this, no, but it's great. Like, this is fathomage. It's fantastic. But if you get them to listen to the beginning of that Fathomage album, where it's this beautiful instrumental acoustic guitar and different instruments that builds up into the bah, of that metal, then
Yes.
it's more likely that they're going to be able to sustain being in it. And that's the thing that thrillers have to do really well, or they just fail. They have to have those red herrings. They have to have things that kind of jerk the actors one direction and then another, because there is always an actor that needs to act as the eyes of the audience, and that's Jodie Foster in The Silence of the Lambs. And so they need to be kind of pulled along and discovering certain things, and then be off kilter, because the second that actor is off kilter, they don't necessarily know who to trust. They don't necessarily know what's going to happen. They're all of a sudden, this isn't the Shire anymore. Like, oh, here we go. Like, we're on Weathertop, and they're just suddenly realizing that things get serious out here in the wilds. Without that, you don't have a movie.
Yes. So, Miss Bernal, if we compare the sequel of Silence of the Lamb, Hannibal, is it the same criteria of a thriller movie?
Well, I think one, Hannibal's a TV show, so there is a bit of a difference there. It's not. You're going to have a difference just because the pacing is different. You have more time. You have a longer story to tell. When you're saying something in 90 minutes to 2.5, 3 hours, then the pacing is totally different. But I think, on one side, the violence is mostly implied or off screen in Silence of the Lambs, something that a more modern, takes on the tale kind of don't necessarily follow the same way. The graphics are more graphic. There's a little bit more intensity in some of the visuals than there are with Silence of the Lambs. And one thing, Silence of the Lambs, that kind of just, chemistry between actors is great for the budget.
Yes.
You can do a thriller with very few resources if the script is good and the actors are on. and the actors are working together in a very real way. So, because sometimes actors don't work well together, and you go, "Oh, who cast that?" Or what happened behind the
Yes.
scenes that those actors are not working well together. Not that that's always the way, but sometimes that's what happens. And you just have to kind of look at it. But I think the stylized approach that we see in Hannibal is just so different, and of course Hannibal is Ridley Scott.
Yes.
Whereas Jonathan Demme was the director of The Silence of the Lambs. So Ridley Scott obviously has more of that stylized cinematography, a little bit more jumpy editing during the violent scenes, kind of like that we see in Gladiator and Kingdom of Heaven. And you could see this sort of, every once in a while. And it makes it a very visceral experience in a different way from the psychological experience of Silence of the Lambs. So I would say the big differences between them would be Hannibal is more explicitly horror, whereas The Silence of the Lambs is psychological thriller every step of the way.
Very well said, Miss Vernon. And which thriller movie has the most unexpected plot twist for you?
Oh. Of the two or of
Or any
any?
kind of movies, thriller movies that you like?
I think I'm going to have to go with Denis Villeneuve's Prisoners from 2013. Um, I love Denis Villeneuve. He's just
It's Canadian, eh?
oh yeah. There's that part of it, Merci Denis, merci pour
Merci
votre
beaucoup.
film. Tu es un auteur. J'aime votre film. Like obviously, he is a Canadian, so that helps, And I'm not
That
just saying
really
it because
helps.
he's a Canadian, but as we've
He's good,
seen,
people. He's very good.
he's really good. And um he's got this sense of being able to make simple the complexity. And I really like that. I love being able to have a complex thriller, which the plot line of Prisoners very much is, with an abduction and initial investigation with Keller Dover's actions. And then the, sort of, here we go, taking the next speedway and realizing that all of the tension is being ramped up because the stakes have gotten higher with the expanding investigation. And then, just the whole way of going about uh, the shots. Denis Villeneuve, he's worked with Roger Deakins a lot, which makes me happy because that is my favorite working cinematographer of all time. Roger Deakins, he's just fantastic. If you want to see visuals that will astound you, then watch Dune, part 1 and part 2. Watch, the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Watch, I believe Prisoners as well. I believe that is a Roger Deakins film as well. And so you get these visuals that are freaking incredible. And he's very keenly aware that there's a lot psychologically going on with these storylines and with the subtext that the actors get to perform. While at the same time recognizing that it's something visual for people to understand. And the way that he weaves the visuals and he weaves the music and he weaves the dialogue around each other, the way that he sustains a moment and then lets other moments pass by is just stellar. And for me, when you get to those revelations, when you get to the true kidnapper in Prisoners, and you get this twist of it being some I don't want to spoil it because this is it's 13 years. No, it's
13
11
years
years
ago.
old now.
Yeah.
So, you get to the point where you find out that the kidnapper and her late husband had been kidnapping children for years in some form of twisted war against God. All of a sudden, you're like, whoa, it's like, what the heck? But you love it. You love it because you feel it. It's this resonance in the back of your head. I mean, I don't mind a slower paced film if the visuals and everything else are done very well. I do mind a slower paced film if I feel like I'm just being dragged along, or if I feel like they're just trying to fill out time and make more seasons before the next season of the manga comes out, My Hero
Yes,
Academia.
true.
But we got to season 3 of My Hero Academia. I'm like, did they stall? Like, why is it taking 7 episodes to get through one exam? But still
Just
love
to
it.
extend.
Still love My Hero Academia. I'm a huge anime person. But I will follow you down that road if the visuals and everything else and the tone and emotion is still there. And that's what I get with Prisoners. And oh my gosh, I just love it.
Amazing.
I love it. It's
So,
so
which
good.
thriller movie has the most unexpected plot twist for you? And that is right,
Prisoners, yeah.
Prisoners. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
Because we've got the suspects, we've got, the different people. You've got, the corpse in a priest's basement, and you've got all these different things, and you're thinking that this is going to be something, again, the second you find out about a corpse in a priest's basement, a lot of people's minds go to the sins of the Catholic Church. And you're thinking, oh, what's going on? And then all of a sudden you find out the revelations and the truth, and it's like, oh, ho, ho,
it's in
my
there.
gosh. It's oh my goodness. It's totally just incredible in that way. Um I think too, Seven was really twisted. Seven, the 1995 David Fincher movie with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. I mean, that too is just an incredible movie,
Yes.
but it's quite dark. It's quite bleak. Um,
I think this is What's in the Box. What's in the box?
what's
That's a
in the
Brad Pitt.
box? What's in the box?
The head.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been 20 years, you don't get
Yes.
spoilers when it's 20 years. Go watch the film.
Sorry. Sorry for
Yeah,
the
but
spoiler.
yeah, that's the thing, like, I think I've said this before. There was somebody that I knew that was, reading the Harry Potter books and was quite, put them down for a few years and got to the one, the Half-Blood Prince, and he didn't read it, and he didn't read it, and he wasn't reading it, and he like it was sitting there not read for about 3 or 4 years. And anytime somebody tried to bring up the main thing in the movie and in the book, oh my gosh, Snape kills Dumbledore. He's like, don't spoil it. I have to. I'm like, dude, you had like 5 years.
Yes.
You had 5
True.
years to read it. If you don't want to read it by you don't want to read it. You just want to no, I'm sorry. But I'm it's the editor in me. I love spoilers. I really do.
Me too.
Which I have to watch myself when I'm on things like this. I'm like, oh, don't spoil my
No.
book. Don't spoil this. But another one to watch. You just Seven is so dark. It's like watch it on Halloween kind of dark.
Mm. So speaking of spoilers, can you give us spoilers for your Ginungagap coming this year?
If you want to hear some spoilers for Ganungagap, the final in the Judge of Mystic Saga Quartet, please come and listen to us during Book 101 review, which will be happening shortly after Movies
Yes.
101. Make sure you stay tuned. Don't turn that dial. We'll talk
Yes,
about
stay
the
tuned.
spoilers for Ganungagap.
How about for Agakwi Maki?
I've got spoilers.
I
Oh
got the
yeah, I've
spoilers
got
too.
spoilers. Oh yeah, we
That'd
can
be
we can talk some plot.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yes, people, please do listen. Book 101 review on our fourth season already. Fourth season. We were having our fifth season this December. And I'm happy to announce that Miss Berna will be my co-host on Book 101 review on my fifth season. We make this podcast bigger, better, and bolder.
Plus
As
Ultra. Sorry, I had to do one more here, My Hero Academia thing.
Plus
Yeah.
Ultra. I love that. And please listen to my feature author of the month, Mr. Joe Clifford, award-winning and best-selling author. Please support him because if you support him, more books to come. As Miss Bernal doing right now. Please plug on your books, Miss Bernal.
So, if you like cyberpunk, if you like mythpunk, if you're going, those sound cool, what are they? If you like books with big emotional characters with characters that are very intertwined, interconnected, while at the same time having action, battle scenes, and Ares, the god of war, as one of the best characters in them, then you would love My Judge of Mystic Saga. It is contemporary fantasy. It is myth punk, god punk. It is just a fantastic, slightly thriller. Like you look at Char and Ash in the beginning, and it starts off a little bit thrillery, and then tumbles through from there into an action adventure featuring Caleb Matheson, the judge of Mystic Realms, all interconnected on our beautiful world. And if you like science fiction and you want to know what we can actually do with AI, I did not use AI to write Neon Lieben. AI, the way that we have it today, did not exist when I wrote Neon Lieben. It was
10
published
years
in
ago.
2021. Yeah. And we published it in 2021, and it had been taking 8 years to write. So I absolutely did not use AI to write Neon Lieben, but Neon Lieben is about Lieben, the world's first sapient and sentient AI, who looks at the planet and goes, y'all need a mother because you're messing this up, and attempts to take over the world to save humanity. Elon, read my
Musk.
book. You're going to need it for Grok.
Speaking of Elon, Miss Berna, please do listen or read Elon Musk by Walter Isaacson. It's something else.
Yeah, that's I have to read that.
Yes. You learn from the ups and downs of Mr. Elon Musk.
Another one who has a Canadian connection. Yeah. Via
Yes.
South
Yes.
Africa. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah, sorry
Anyway, you
for
can find
that,
out
Miss
more
Berna.
information
Yes.
on my books at sapphirburnell.com. You can also search Sappho Burnell and The Judge of Mystics and Neon Lieben. And if you want something that is totally an actual thriller, then my novella Whiskey and Sinner's Blood is available in the Macabre and Monstrous anthology, which is coming out in an audiobook for this spooky
Mm.
season. And I'm really excited about that.
Congratulations, Miss Burnell. Hope more audiobooks and books to come. So let's go back. How does music and sound design enhance tension in thriller films like Prisoner?
So, without clear sound design, you miss out on so many opportunities to release information in packets. And the strain of a song, the motif of an instrument, or even the high pitched whine of a fluorescent light as somebody's walking into a room. All of that can hyper focus people into experiences that, depending on where the person is from and what kind of life they've led, they might actually understand. A lot of us in North America have walked into a building, whether it's a school, an office, a hospital, or a shop, and heard a fluorescent light bulb. They've heard that sound, that buzz that they get when they're kind of not working correctly or not docked properly in their stand. And there are certain things that help bring people into the life of that viewpoint character so much more, and very few things do that as well as sound, since we don't have smell yet, unless you're in Universal Studios. At that one ride where they have the 4 or 5D experience or whatever it is, and she's like, ooh, popcorn. um but smell-o-vision isn't a thing yet. So it's sound along with the visuals, and you know, oh, being able to, on the flip of that, with the sound design, bring people emotionally into a scene to kind of prime and guide their emotions, whether or not they should be worried about that next turn that somebody has to make. Like we see this, especially when we go into from thriller into horror. You have, especially in thriller, the sound of bugs, the sound of flies as the detective is going through an area, and you're going, okay, they're going to find a dead guy. You're primed for it. You could see it. You're like, okay, here we go, here we go, here we go. But try watching a thriller with the sound off, and it's quite a different experience. Try watching less well-produced horror movie with no sound, and it becomes a comedy very quickly. It really does. And, for those of us who happen to be hearing impaired, the way that they do closed captions and things, the way that they write those captions on the bottom of the screen are, are an art form as well. You get some of those thriller movies where the closed captions on the bottom of the screen, they add more of that sort of tonal information, not just music playing, violin. They add, music coming into a crescendo. They add other things into that closed caption to try and mimic the experience for people who do have intact hearing, for the hearing impaired. And I love that part of it too, because that's so important, being able to be inclusive that way. And all it takes is somebody sitting there watching the movie with a pair of cans on their ears, typing away and getting into the emotions and the feelings and the tone. And once you have that, then you've got your audience. So sound design is incredibly clever. You can do so much with it. You want to make sure that, again, there are levels, but not too separated. You can get those movies, especially a lot of action movies, things like that, where you're sitting there on your TV, because that's what people are doing mostly now. They're not seeing things in cinemas where the sound design comes in a very different way, because of the sound system and all of the different speakers that are kind of surrounding the people, but it's on your TV. So you have a less true to edited experience when it comes to sound design. But we've all seen those movies on Netflix or whatever we're watching on, where we have to turn up the dialogue and turn down the music when you get to the action scenes, because the action scenes are blowing out our speakers and the dialogue is so quiet we can't hear it. And so anybody who's had that experience watching a movie knows what I mean when I say that sound design is incredibly important, and mastering sound for whether it's going on a streaming service, whether it's on a DVD or a Blu-ray, or whether it's in a theater, that is incredibly important. And I think it's being a little bit missed in certain movies too, where you get the editors coming out after the fact going, yeah, but I expected that this was going to be in a movie theater, so I mastered the sound for a movie theater with very specific speakers and very specific things, and with people that would have filled that movie theater, and then people themselves would have dampened some of the sound. And so, if you see a movie in a crowded movie theater, this is another reason why movie theaters themselves are so important, and we should go see movies in theaters. I mean, watching them at home is great, but when you see it in the theater with a packed theater and you've got enough people that are sort of warming up the sound, dampening the sound with their bodies, then you're getting what the editors actually intended and what the sound designers actually intended in a different way than you do when you're sitting in front of your television with maybe a sound bar.
Yes,
So,
true. Because nowadays people are watching streaming online. So please do, people, support movies. Go
mhm.
on in any outside in theater, or to support these movies around us, because they great. So what is the difference between psychological thriller and action thriller, Miss
Mm.
Bernal?
Psychological thrillers often only have a small bit or no violence. That is one of the main ones. Action thrillers have some form of violence. They have combat, they have fighting, they have, a guy with a gun or a guy with a knife, or, something, uh, something similar like that. Whereas a psychological thriller, while almost as, or just as, or even more than visceral, it's still more about the mind and more about the mind games and the bleakness of the world, like you think of Seven. It is a psychological thriller specifically because of the way that they shot it, but also the way that you have each of these murders inspired by the seven deadly sins. And you've got these detectives who are investigating all of this, and they're coming across, gluttony, an obese man forced to eat until his stomach ruptures, which is like, don't eat spaghetti for a month after watching that. Sorry, not gonna happen. Like, I'm done. Thank you for choosing spaghetti. Like, oh man.
Why not carbonara?
Oh, you're looking at that going, yeah, you chose that because because you could make it look like guts really quickly. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. I see you. I see you. You know, you've got greed with a lawyer coerced to cut a pound of his own flesh, and you've got sloth, you know, a drug dealer and not nice person. Look it up. Um, Found wasted away after being tied to a bed for a year. You know, you've got all of these different layers that the serial killer played by Kevin Spacey, who himself is very good at being creepy. Let me
He's
put
a
it that
creepy
way.
guy
I'm
in
not gonna
real
make any
life.
commentary about Kevin Spacey and all of that kind of thing, but
He's a
he
good
was very
actor.
well cast in Seven.
Yes,
Like,
yes,
let's just
yes.
say he was very well cast in Seven. Um,
He's a good actor, people, in fairness.
in fairness, he's a good actor, but I'm not going to make any commentary about any personal life stuff because I'm not going to make any commentary on that. Um, just that he was very well cast in Seven.
Yes.
And the monologue that he did in House of Cards, that very first monologue in episode 1 of House of Cards, I was like, yeah, you're okay. Yeah, this yikes. I don't want to meet you in a dark alley. Personal, you know, that's my personal opinion because of the way he can act. Nothing else, because I'm not going to get anything else. But la la
Yeah.
la.
La La Land, but
But
people,
so psychological thrillers,
yes,
there are visceral images, and it's not like a psychological thriller is going to be less grotesque in a way. Action sometimes is a lot, to be honest, less grotesque
yes,
and less
you're true.
dour than a psychological thriller, because at least in action, part of the thing with an action thriller is that being able to combat something like an enemy gives you a sense of power, a sense of self power. Like it's you're less lost. You can be less scared, not that you are, but you can be less scared in a situation when you are a competent person with some form of firearm or weapon or hand-to-hand combat. So the payoff of the suspense is going to be a different thing than psychological thrillers, where a lot of the time the psychological part of it is the serial killer or the Hannibal Lecter person trying to basically break somebody else's mind. And so when you're in that mind break moment in a psychological thriller, it's a lot more about the viewpoint character being powerless, not knowing what to do, not knowing how to defeat this enemy. This enemy is so huge. All of these things are hitting in those sort of psychological and emotional places. Whereas in an action thriller, you've got, you know, Jack Ryan going, how many more bullets do I have in my gun? Okay, let's do this. We can still figure this out. And so there is a powerfulness in an action thriller that you don't necessarily get in a psychological thriller like Seven or Silence of the Lambs or The Prisoners, or even Get Out and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, even though The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo also has, you know, some more actiony things. Um, but it's just it's that sense of where you are taking somebody's agency, where you are taking uh the viewers. Are you taking them through these psychological things to make them think about something? Are you taking them through this to kind of make them see the seven deadly sins and, you know, what happens with morality and all these different things like in Seven? Or are you taking them on an adventure where they've got 90 seconds before a nuclear bomb goes off in the middle of a football game in the United States of America, which I'm told is a very big kind of event, and the stadium is full? You know, those are two very different things. It's less mentally taxing usually for something like an action thriller usually than a psychological thriller, because you know, while we are
Usually,
watching something, there is certain research on you know, neuroscience, where when we're in the middle of watching something, if we're actually dialed in to watching it, not just kind of casually observing and going back and doing whatever and being on our phones, but if we're actually sitting there watching it, our brains are reacting to those emotions as if they're happening for that short amount of time.
Yes.
we are acting in our minds as if that is real, as if it's right there, as if it's happening. This happens with creators, this happens with filmmakers, this happens with finished projects, which are works of art. If they are good enough in quality, they'll get people to buy in and be fascinated by the screen. And that emotion that you're feeling when you're jumping, when that monster comes from behind something, or when you're getting that sense of dis-ease when looking at Hannibal Lecter talking about Chianti and fava beans, um, it unsettles in a way that kind of sticks with you afterwards, in a way that an action thriller is not necessarily going to do. And both are necessary depending on what you're looking for. If you're going through a hard day and you've been like, oh man, all these things are going wrong. I mean, the jig is up on whether or not you want to watch a psychological thriller or an action one that moment. Do you want to continue to experience that malaise as a form of self investigation? Or do you want to watch something that clicks that part off for a while so you can see how is it that in the end the hero is going to succeed? And I think that's the thing with action thrillers too. In the end, a lot of action thrillers that we've had, I mean, less so in the modern sense of the last 15 years, but a lot of the ones in the past, you knew that by the end of it, Jack Ryan was going to get out of that okay. You knew that by the end of it, they were going to find a proper solution and rectify some form of wrong. You don't necessarily have that. In fact, you very rarely have that in psychological thrillers. You know, it's meant to stay with you.
Very well said, Miss Bernard. So to sum up our discussion for today, which thriller director do you think it's the master of this genre?
Oh, oh, there is a conversation to have there. Um, let's see. I think if you're looking for the master of psychological thrillers, I would probably go. Oh man, I'm switching between a couple. You know what? I would probably go with David Fincher. David Fincher, who
Oh,
is the director behind Seven, also Zodiac, Gone Girl, and I mean he did The Social Network too. So that's be that as it may. But I would definitely go with David Fincher because Seven is just so like. Whew!
amazing.
Also, he was the executive producer on Love, Death, and Robots, which is a fantastic series of short films to watch if you are into sci-fi or if you're curious about sci-fi. Definitely watch Love, Death, and Robots. So that would be another reason why I would say David Fincher.
David Fincher,
Yeah.
people, is the winner.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world and entertaining us. Give us more, more, more movies, please. So, Miss Bernal, another episode. So, thank you so much for your time.
And thank you for yours. And thank you, everybody, for loving movies.
Modicon people, see you soon.